Welcome to the Small Business Breakthrough Series, where every week we're interviewing small business owners that support small business owners. Today is unique because we have a product launch and we have something very special. Today's guest, after working with thousands of small businesses over his entire career, it's been apparent that there was a problem in the marketplace. And as business owners, you and I have all experienced this same problem, and that is negative reviews that are not helpful to the community. Well, our guest today, Gene McCubbin, founder and CEO of Review has built a product that will help us get rid of those unhelpful negative reviews. Gene, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you.
Give us an intro. What is Review and how is it helping our listeners?
So, Review is a service that allows the small business owner to manage their online reviews and their online reputation, as well as remove or suppress negative reviews. So, oftentimes, the review process is great when customers put their positives out there, and worthwhile when they put even negatives out there where it's reasonable feedback. But it is easily abused by people who are using it unfairly, or from an extortion perspective, or competitors, or just angry employees, or even just being unfair in their approach. And for many businesses, their online profiles, there's Google reviews, their Yelp reviews can have a significant impact to their ability to maintain the health of their business. So historically, a small business has a feedback mechanism that they can use through the platforms themselves, but generally they don't really pay much attention to those feedback mechanisms. So it's difficult. You have to understand the rules process, use that system, and then escalate the problem if it's a legitimate problem, because most of the times they just don't respond appropriately and you don't get your negative review removed. So that's what we do. And then we give them tools that also help them manage the reviews, manage their responses using AI, and enhance their overall reputation online.
Gene, there was a lot of history there where you've been dealing with building websites and dealing with these companies that have lot built companies and been negatively impacted by these reviews. What inspired you to go down this path? What happened that you said, "Wait, maybe we need to fix this problem"?
Well, I've owned two of the larger web design companies in the Gulf South, maybe even one of the largest in Houston, or the largest in Houston, and sold both those companies. But what I've seen particularly the last 10 or 15 years, is that there's more and more influence has been given to this kind of concept of user generated content or reviews that are from a customer or a third party. And that's great. But when it becomes a problem, or someone is using it abusively or even unfairly, like there'll be people who go out and they're unhappy with something that happened at a restaurant, so they have 5 or 8 different accounts and leave 5 or 8 reviews, negative reviews. You'd think that Google's system would stop that or automatically catch it, but it doesn't. Or 95 times out of 100 it doesn't. And so it takes time to deal with those and get them removed, and to respond to them appropriately. And most small business owners just don't know how to do it, and they don't have the time to do it. They don't have the technology and the tools to enable them to be able to remove it. If your rating is a 4-star or under, you're pretty much losing business from that. That's kind of the number. If it's below 4 stars, you're getting hurt. And sometimes, sadly, you have competitors, you have ex-employees, you just have, pardon my French, asshole customers that just, are being unfair and using it kind of extortionistically to try to get taken advantage of the situation.
Yeah, sometimes you see these guys that they're trying to vent. They're trying to blow off the steam. They're not doing it in a constructive manner. I've definitely dealt with many of this in years past, and I used to own broadband service providers, and In the internet, when anything would go out down, whether that was the website itself was down, they would always blame the provider, right? And so we'd see those reviews, and it was a very active management thing to be able to combat and reach out. Like, but that was where we had that ability. In the cases you're talking about, that's not necessarily an ability to reach out directly, because sometimes they're hiding under masked names, or as you just commented, multiple different accounts. Definitely a negative impact. You've been in business now a long time. You've built multiple companies. What has been your proudest moment as an entrepreneur as you've been building these businesses?
It's kind of a funny question. Honestly, it's just I have typically hired young people just out of school, and started their careers, and to see those people develop substantially successful careers, whether they've moved on from me and moved somewhere else. I'm actually quite proud of that. When you've had a hand in developing somebody's professional path, that's pretty, I feel rewarding, to be quite frank. So I enjoy that. I like to see businesses that are customers succeed. When you see a small business get started and scrape their way through the very beginning, no money, no idea, no clue, basically, and then 5 or 8 years later they're succeeding. I still have customers from my agency, that are just long-term customers that when I sold off portions of the agency, I kept the ones that had a personal relationship with. And it's, refreshing to see that they're still getting business, that they're still generating revenues, and, exactly the customers they want, the way they want it. So that I enjoy to see the customers and the employees succeed, to be quite frank.
As you're thinking about that and watching these guys succeed, what are some of the challenges that you can share with business owners out there that words of encouragement, I should say, is that as you've dealt with and so what are the challenges that you've dealt with in leading teams and working with customers, and what are some of those words of encouragement that can give inspiration to keep grinding, keep going? There is light at the end of the tunnel.
Um, Gosh, so I mean, I think that the choice to be an entrepreneur, to start your own business, whether that is a nail salon or a agency or a tech company, a software company, I think it's basically a lifestyle choice. You don't work the same way other people work. It's a 24-hour job, and it doesn't change. Even if your business is successful, you still think about your business, and you still kind of delve into that business. I might not be hands on, building a website or fixing a car, but you're still the owner. And so the stress of that carries with you. I don't think that changes. And I think if it does change, there's a lack of responsibility in the entrepreneur's perspective. Um, so, I think that the choice to be an entrepreneur is also a choice of choosing freedom, because there's freedom that comes from that. You have the freedom to set your own schedule. You have the freedom to make yourself successful, or just not so successful. That's an option too. When I sold off my last agency, I chose not to start something for you know many years, and just enjoyed the downtime. I made less money, but it was enjoyable, to be quite frank. Took a break, and now it's time to get back going. So there's a lot of things about owning a business that's both exciting and challenging. I think to the typical business owner, the thing that they fail to do, if I see it commonly, is understand financials and understanding the legalities of whatever it is that they do. I think most people don't want to deal with it. They want to go do their thing and not deal with the operating aspects of running a business. And I think that's the biggest area I see business owners fail in, is they don't, really understand financials, and they don't really understand the legalities behind what they're doing and how to protect themselves.
I totally agree with that statement right there. That's an absolute um, reminder for those listeners out there that paying attention to the financials, and those that have listened to the podcast or even watched any of my content through social, is I'm a big proponent on dealing with your financial statements and making sure you understand what you're profit and loss is, what your gross margins are, all of the different details that go inside of it. Because if you don't have that data, you are literally flying blind. Like
Yep.
it's, I guarantee you don't have the certification to be able to fly blind in that case. So,
Yep.
the,
It's
one
funny.
thing,
I have a teenage nephew that's just started selling on Amazon about a year ago. He's doing quite well. And I was talking to him about gross margin, his gross profit on his product, and he didn't understand the terminology. I was thought, oh gosh. So I just this morning had a conversation with him about net profits and gross profits and understanding your cost and what your margins are as you look for additional products, the need for diversification, setting up a financial, statement and how to read it. And, these are basic things that nobody knows day one, but you do need to learn. And good news is, you have a tool right in front of you, your phone, your computer, where, the totality of human knowledge is accessible to you. You don't have to go to a special school. You don't even have to have a mentor. You can just go online and read. And I think, of course, reading is something that's valuable to people that a lot of people fail to do. But yeah, I think that financials and understanding financials is extremely important.
yeah, it's I was in a conversation yesterday with, looking at an acquisition and working through some details. And when I said, "Where's the employee costs? Like, you're using VAs in here. Where's that expense in this P&L?" And he said, and they're using some really low cost offshore stuff. And he goes, "Well, I don't actually know how to allocate the 8. I've got 8 different brands that I'm running, and I don't know how to allocate the VA time to each brand." And I said, "Well, this is how I would approach it, and I would recommend you get that put in, because right now I can't continue to look at this acquisition from that, because you're not giving me all the true costs
Right.
of operating the business." And so the, when I'm doing any kind of an analysis, it's got to have all of the financial detail, because if I don't have it, I'm again, you're flying
Yeah.
blind and been bit in the butt too many times in the past.
Yeah. You're just guessing.
Wait, yeah, exactly. If you've ever opened your laptop ready to grow your business and 2 hours later closed it, realizing you've gotten nothing done, but you've researched office chairs, you've ordered lunch, and you've planned out the next 3 dinners, all the things that you wouldn't typically do to work on your business. Yeah, I've done that too. I'm Jason Pond. I'm the host of the Small Business Breakthrough Podcast, and I want you to achieve your breakthrough. But we do that through the community I built. I built the Momentum Community. The Momentum Community is a place where we meet every week. We talk about your goals, where you want to get with your business, and then we track them. And we use the Momentum dashboard to do that. We make sure you're moving forward every week, and it's accountability like you've never seen in a community forum. I want you to be part of that community. If you want to learn more about it, check out the link in the description below and enjoy the rest of the episode. You're jumping into a spot that's really new. Like, there's not very many people out there that are trying to, really help in that negative review space. So, this next question may be a little challenging, but from the aspect of maybe what you're using to be able to help with this, what do you see the industry doing in the next 2 to 3 years to either assist, or maybe you're leading the way at the cutting edge of the bell curve, and we don't, you're not quite sure what it is, but where do you see this going for the benefit of the business owners?
So the idea that people can create content or write and talk about your business is protected through, the concept of free speech. And usually, any platform, Google, Yelp, whomever, the Better Business Bureau, they're going to allow somebody to have their free speech, and that's not going to change. And we don't want it to change, right? You don't want it to change. It's a fantastic thing. But conceptually, like, I have the right to wave my arms around, and that's my right. I can do it anytime I want. I don't have the right to wave my arms around and hit somebody else, right? And so free speech begins to be a problem if you start attacking somebody, you make racist comments, or you're bullying them, or you're defaming them. And the way that you defend yourself in that, when that happens, is most people think, oh, I'm going to go to court. But that's like a really horrible solution. It takes forever, it's expensive, and usually nobody wins except the lawyer. And that's a fact. So I don't think that the platforms are going to all of a sudden stop allowing people to have free speech. So that's never going to change. And the concept behind most of these tech companies, Google or eBay or any of them, is very limited service. That's all self-managed service. And then their first layer of service is going to be, like you talked about earlier, some sort of offshore outsourcing component. So your ability to go in and complain about something that somebody left on a review, let's just say on your business, is limited to whatever tool they make available to you, which is a very narrow system that allows you to complain. And then the first level it goes to is some sort of offshore person whose primary job is to say, no, this is okay, it's free speech. So unless it's obnoxiously not okay, they don't usually remove it. And so there's tools in place to take it to another level, but you really have to become knowledgeable to do that, including all the way up to claiming copyright infringement or defamation or any of these kind of legal claims. But as far as where the industry is going, I don't think it's going to change. I think that these platforms make money off of advertising, and the more reviews there are, the more eyeballs it creates. It's creating advertising opportunities for them. So it's something a business has to take advantage of. If you're a large brand or a large large company, you're going to hire an agency, and the agency is going to handle these kind of things for you, both suppressing negative content and then creating positive content, press releases or information on your brand, the entrepreneur as a brand themselves, etc. But if you can't afford a $10,000 a month agency, then you got to figure out how to do it yourself. And it's time consuming. The only tools that are out there, as you said, it's kind of a new industry. Most of it is tool based, meaning they give you a tool that you got to go figure out how to use. And at best, they're tools that encourage people to leave positive reviews. So the concept of dilution of a negative. So if I've got 100 reviews and 10 are bad, and I create another 100 positive reviews, then those 10, the impact of those 10 goes down. And that's true. So most of the tools that are out there are focused on creating new reviews for your business by, prompting customers when they're at the checkout stage, or SMS texting the customer. And they work. There's nothing wrong with them, but you still got to manage it and you got to actively deal with it. We have all those tools, and we have AI-based tools to manage it and see it and connect to your Facebook and your Google and Yelp and all that good stuff. But we also go the step of actually removing the negatives, or taking the time to remove and respond to the negatives that are out there, if you can. And I'd say we have about a 40 to 60% success rate on removing stuff at this stage. And we're in stealth mode today. By the time this podcast airs, we'll be out of that stealth mode, but in beta, kind of friends and family mode, if you will. But it seems to be going very well. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, that is very good. It's such a unique thing to get to hear about a little bit, and excited to see the business launch and be a part of it. So, Gene, it's been a great conversation. I want to jump into our lightning round, as our tradition is on this podcast, or has become on this podcast, I should say. We got about 6 questions to run through. They're meant to be quick hitting questions. The first one's pretty simple. Coffee or tea?
Coffee, espresso specifically.
There you go. We're going with some European roots. Cats or dogs?
Dogs for companionship, cats for entertainment.
I love it. Oh, that's a great one. If you could grab only one weapon or item during a zombie apocalypse, what would it be?
Machete.
How about a favorite quote or phrase that you think about often?
A favorite quote or phrase? Gosh, I don't think I have anything off the top of my head.
Fair enough.
I really don't. Sorry.
Let's go with, how about a book that has influenced your life the most?
A book that has influenced my life. I read a book, it's a little obscure, called The Diamond Cutter. And it's a pretty good business book about a diamond merchant. It's a true story written by the merchant who became a venture capitalist. It's a good book. A lot of good business data in it. So
nice.
enjoy that. And I'd say separately, Stephen King, if you like fiction, he has a book called On Writing, which is all about writing. I think reading, writing, and communications are skills that most people lack, or at least haven't fully developed. And I think that as a business person, in any business, your bedside manner, your capabilities of communication are important. So I actually like that book, and I think writing is again just a form of communication. So that's a good book too.
Excellent. The biggest obstacle that you have had to overcome and one lesson you've learned from it.
Biggest obstacle I've had to overcome. Gosh, I just don't think in terms of that. Biggest obstacle I had to overcome probably was, I developed an agency, a web marketing agency, which is a tech services firm, and it was a good business and a large business. But it's not technically defensible, meaning all my employees could leave and start competing firms, and just realizing I had a successful business that made money. But it was not really long-term sustainable or defensible from a growth perspective. So it's not the kind of business you could take public, or you could. It's just not really favorable to do so. So that I bought a commercial building during 2000, right before the 2008 mortgage crisis. That was probably a little bit stressful. Those are my two primary issues.
Yeah.
Feeling like I made the wrong business decision in terms of the business I went into, even though the business was successful, and deciding to wind it down, sell off most of the business, and move into something else.
Yeah, definitely. It takes a lot to be able to do that and make those decisions around something you're passionate about or had passion about, and just decided it was time to go a different direction.
Right.
For sure. Gene, what is the best way any of our listeners can learn more about Review ER or you yourself?
You just go to review-er.com, and everything is right there to tell you about the service, learn more about it. Also, as well as do-it-yourself information. If you don't, money's tight, you don't want to sign up for somebody to help you with it, then just plenty of information on how to do it yourself. And then about me, just you can Google my name. There's plenty of good and bad and things in there, but I'm in the marketing business, so mostly good.
Excellent. And for those listeners out there, all that information will be inside of the show notes or the description if you are watching this on YouTube. And if you would listen back to some of the nuggets inside of how to run your business successfully. And if you're dealing with any of that negative reviews, definitely reach out to review-er.com and let them know you found them on the Small Business Breakthrough podcast. If you enjoyed this content and you would like to hear more episodes, click the playlist located right up here in the corner. Otherwise, until next time.